part of what I get to do is to be a part of leadership teams. And part of being on a leadership team is I meet awesome people. And so Henry and I started a conversation 3 months ago, working with Sutton Leadership. And I wanted to have, a conversation. It's awesome because we ended up, Taha ended up being able to join us this morning. And we come from all of these different places. And there's times in our life where we're going to find where we're in different places. I mean, I think you all know how much I travel. And it is mostly inside the United States, but sometimes we cultures run the only way guy. And it's like sometimes that can be like an interesting experience. And I have to imagine it's probably interesting having different experiences of race and discussion. And I want to talk about it from a biblical standpoint for a second, because in Matthew chapter 12, I think there's some interesting insight. And so part of what makes my life awesome is my friendships. And it's the people that go that are, we're able to see and experience what we're seeing, but also want to be able to talk about, ways that we can be able to live and be able to share things. And so in Matthew chapter 7, we're going to read up until probably around 12, but it says, "Judge not that you be judged, for with the judgment," and this is from Jesus' I believe it was the Sermon on the Mount. And so this is stuff that Jesus actually talked about. And we have friends from different perspectives, from different backgrounds, but the stronger we all are, the better all of our voices are. And so judge not that you be not judged. For with judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good to those who ask him? So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for that is the law and the prophets. And so in our mission, is finding our paths. I'm a Christian. I think many of us have made that decision. Some of us are maybe thinking about different ways. Some of us might have different faiths. But thinking about that mission that I feel really charged to is thinking about how to lift all of our voices up. Because it's not just my voice. It's not just your voice. It's all of our voices. We can hear all of our voices. We hear a magical thing. We hear some awesome wisdom and some ideas. And so I wanted to have sort of an open conversation. This is different than sort of our sometimes we have these presentations where it's like one person talking. We had Jake last weekend. But this, I'd really like to have more of a conversation. And so, Henry, do you want to lead us off and tell us who you are and sort of how you got to Gary, South Dakota?
Yeah. My name is Henry Sule. Originally from Nigeria. Came here to South Dakota 5 years ago. I live in Sioux Falls now. I originally came for school, so I went to Augustana University, Sioux Falls. Came in as a government major a couple of years ago. First off, even backtracking even further, I didn't know South Dakota existed. When I finished high school, I knew I wanted to study abroad, and I had parents who were very supportive of that mission. So they kind of supported me in terms of motivation and then financially being able to come here. That was also during the COVID year, so traveling was also just almost non-existent, very hard. But through many blessings, I was able to make it across. Started in 2021. Government, did 4 years at Augustana University, ended up graduating and changing my major into finance and computer information systems. And now I've been graduated for a year, and I work at a non-profit organization called Startup Sioux Falls, partnered with the city, and what we do is we help people who are looking to start their own businesses or have started their own businesses and need support in whatever way that might be, connecting to resources or whatnot. A couple of months after graduating, I applied to this program, the Willie Sutton Leadership Institute, because I knew a couple of friends before me who had also done that, and that's where I met Gary. We had a weekend in Wakoma, South Dakota, for 1 weekend, talking about community, what that means for us, and how do we go back as individuals and create impactful change for our communities, whether that's uplifting people from different communities, giving voices to different people, or making it more equitable and just for different people that come from, like Gary said, different walks of life. we talked a lot about being othered and empathy and being able to see differences and recognize those differences, but also appreciate it. Not everyone needs to be on the same wavelength, the same philosophy. There's beauty in seeing differences and being able to accommodate and bring that into the room to be able to have meaningful discourse. So that's where I met Gary. I don't know if there's anything we want to talk about specifically. There's a lot that's in the middle of, within that story. I'm open to hearing or answering any questions based on what you want to know, but that's a very high level overview of me and how I got here.
I really appreciate your work at Startup Sioux Falls because they have such interesting programming. I've been part of their founders program and then also with the neurodivergent because I have ADHD. And so it's cool because there's places where I can go have conversations with people that don't exist anywhere else. I mean, you just don't have the space. And then being able to meet people that have, because it's cultivating the community, it's curating the community, but it's just such a good job that y'all do. And I appreciate the discussion. I mean, for that decision to move to the United States, I feel like, y'all went to Washington, D.C., and I think that was a big decision, and that's 1,700 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's our distance from Nigeria? Are we 5,000?
I think something there about, I used to know the numbers. When I got here immediately, I knew the number a lot more just because I felt the distance a lot more.
I have it right here,
Oh, yeah?
because I wanted to look up Nigeria. 6,460 miles,
Oh
is
my
that?
goodness.
Yeah. So that was like a 24-hour flight here, and then my flight got delayed, so another 12 hours. So that was not a fun trip, about 36 hours traveling. I was very jet lagged after that, but yeah, it was worth the sacrifice. I worked up until middle school through high school, knowing that I wanted to do that. And so when I finally got to the point where I had the opportunity to do it, I was willing to make the sacrifice. Everything seemed like it was working against me. Again, there was COVID. There were a lot of travel restrictions coming up. Augustana wasn't the initial school I wanted to go to, but opportunities and the doors that were before me, I kind of made the active decision. It's like one of my favorite poems is "The Road Not Taken" by Robert Frost, if you know it. So it's like you have two paths before you, two doors. You can pick one, or you can spend all your time thinking about the choices and if the one choice will be the right one, and if what you'll be giving up if you don't take the other path. So I just chose the one that was in front of me. And yeah, never been Sioux Falls, South Dakota. South Dakota in general, Midwest in general, came sight unseen. I came in the winter, January 2021. I slipped on ice as I was walking out of the airport. So a lot of things just like...
Welcome.
Exactly. I was rolling my bag out like wide-eyed, like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, and then just like fell right as I was coming out. But it's been a phenomenal place. The main reason I came here, my admission counselor at the university, his name was Wade Gamar. He was also a part of the program that Gary and I are part of. But he talked to me a lot about community and what it's like being, because he traveled the world a lot too as well. He talked about what it's like coming to a community that you're not from and how it feels being adjusting to the new space. So having a community of people that are willing to support you and take you along. And he talked about Sioux Falls and South Dakota being a place that's very welcoming. And since I've been here, I don't think I've seen that for a fact. So yeah, long answer to your question.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I'm gonna move the microphone really quick. Taha, we'd love to hear a little bit about your journey. I mean, Karachi, Pakistan, that's a coastal city.
My name is Taha. I grew up in Karachi, Pakistan, which is the largest city of the country. So it's kind of like New York, like busy all the time, traffic and pollution and crime and all those things that you get in a bigger city, but also a lot of community and good street food. And the sea is right there, and you can just go ride camels and four-wheelers and things like that. I also applied to Augustana as just one of the universities I was just applying to. It was free to apply to Augie, so I did, and ended up getting accepted. And again, I think the admission counselor did a great job, like talking to me, answering my questions, versus other schools that were just sending me links to, here's a link to my website, just read it, and so I felt more connected to Augustana already before even coming here. Yes, when I came to Augie, I started as a computer science major, and that's what I finished with, but I also did a data science and a math minors alongside. And now I'm working at Raven Industries. It's like a precision farming tech company in Sioux Falls. I write software for one of the product lines to have tractors drive in a straight line and plan proper rows and record all that data and all those things. And I think like Henry and Gary mentioned, I think community subconsciously I think is what I was looking for, because when I first looked up Sioux Falls, it was advertised as the largest city in South Dakota, and that's true, but there's still just 200,000 people. That's how many people we have at a shopping mall at one time, back home. So it was a big culture shock that way. But I think it worked out really nice, because the smaller groups there are, the more chances you get to talk to people, and spaces like these don't exist in a lot of other places, whether it's in the U.S. or otherwise. So I'm really grateful for Gary to host this and put things together, and getting fellowship and getting to learn about people and their backgrounds, but also learning important skills like carpentry and welding. Yeah. And Henry invited me to this trip, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and so I said yes. I just thought I was just going along for the ride and getting to know all of you and meeting you has been great so far.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I'm curious because like when we think about our families, like our family has like different ideas about what we're doing. Maybe we don't have. I think I've been pretty open about the fact like I don't really have family, so it's something where like I have to like go find things on my own. But I'd love to hear you all talk about family, faith, sort of this journey for you coming to the United States. What's your image of the United States? What's the dream of being here that we can be able to understand and build off of?
Image of the United States, I watch a lot of Disney TV shows and that, so that's kind of like my perception. It colored a lot of my image. I have an aunt who lives here, so when we were younger we would come. I think the first time I came was 2013, and so that was the first time I got to the United States, and that was in California, so very different from culturally from the Midwest. And I guess that's one thing, misperception I had, that there's from one state to the next, even across the whole like East Coast to West Coast, there's a wide variety of people, languages, food, and I only got to see that little part of it. So when I came in 2021, I saw another part of it that was very shocking, because California has a lot of people. It's coastal, it's warm. Midwest, not so much.
Nice.
Yeah. But family-wise, I have a younger sister. It's just the two of us, and then 2 parents. Like I said, they were very supportive. My parents are both professors as well, so education was very important to them, and then they kind of did their best to instill that on my sister and I. They also work at like a teaching hospital, so medically, that's like they really wanted us to go into the medical field. I did not. I said that early on. I set that expectation, so they weren't disappointed in me. My sister is trying to go that route, but faith, I think, has been a big part of our family dynamics. My dad is Catholic. My mom's dad, so my grandpa, was Muslim. So she grew up in that religion for the first early parts of her life.
Sure.
Shortly before she got married, she converted, she became a Christian, and then she got married to my dad, and so we kind of grew up in this dynamic where she had a experience of another faith. And so Catholic faith is very strict, rigid. It has very strict procedures what you need to do, and she was coming from another faith that was slightly different, so they kind of had to find a middle ground for how they raise their kids and how they raise my sister and I. So I grew up in the Catholic Church for most of my early life, and when I came over here, it was very different for me, because this was something my parents had given me. I did it because I was in my parents' house, so I had to find my faith for myself. And I'll be honest, I've not been as strict and focused on the faith as when I was back home, not going to church every Sunday and all that, but I still believe in God and have faith, and I believe I have a relationship with Him. My process now is just to continue working to develop that and see what that looks like for me, and have a relationship with God that's like I can rely on, that I tap into on a recurring basis. And I forget the other part of the question.
I think you're answering all of it. I mean, yeah, it's talking about where you are and sort of that journey. I mean, I feel like family support for, Taha, I'd love to get your reflection on this too, but like that family support, there's a great hope, like there's a lot of family wealth expended to bring you here. And so thinking about that vision that your parents have, the vision that you have, and sort of where that carries you also, part of our discussion. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, so I'm the eldest brother. I have two younger brothers. My dad, he manages one part of the family business, and they manufacture kitchen appliances like ovens and tabletops and or countertop ovens and chimneys and all sorts of like kitchen related appliances. So he does mostly that. And then my mom was a homemaker, a housewife for most of her life, but now she's starting to start an online business, just sell or export jewelry or clothing to the U.S. from Pakistan. Yeah, I think for faith-wise, I grew up in a Muslim family, and Pakistan is a majority Muslim country. So everyone around me was Muslim. I only met one Hindu, I think, throughout my life, 18 years that I've lived there, and also maybe a couple Christian people in Pakistan during my life there. There are some cities that are majority, Christian population, majority Hindu population. Just I think it makes sense when you find someone with a similar belief that tend to live in similar communities or around each other. And I think that was one of the biggest pieces that I wanted to, go study abroad, is to expand my circle. Because when everyone looks like you and talks like you, speaks your language, practices the same faith, goes to the same mosque or church, reads the same scripture, kind of get in a bubble thinking that the outside world might be different. But when I came here, I found the same values in Christianity that the Muslim faith teaches or the Quran teaches, which is like community, not lying to anyone, not cheating anyone, and spending a good life, serving God and God's creations in so many different ways, not just worship. And in terms of my relationship to faith, in Islam, there's kind of like two ways of practicing your faith. One of them is, more like practices like going to the mosque and praying 5 times a day, and praying on Fridays when there's a special prayer, or fasting during Ramadan, similar to Lent, performing the pilgrimage and charity and all those things. Those are your services towards God. But there's another, which I think is the bigger piece, is your service towards His people and His creation. Like if I am very religious and going to the mosque every time and fulfilling all those things, but I'm not a good friend or a good brother or a good son to my parents, I don't think that what I'm doing and learning in the mosque is reflecting in my life. So that's what I tend to focus more on now, is my service to people and God's creations from all different backgrounds and races and religions. Because at the end of the day, I believe we all share the same values. It's just different ways of reaching that God and talking to Him and leading a good, faithful life. Does that answer the question?
It's fantastic. Thank you very much. Glad you're here. Thank you for sharing that, because it's something where I sometimes am involved in conversations where we talk about different faiths, and there's this idea of like, oh well, we can't be friends, or that there's some sort of separation. And I think it's interesting, and I'd be interested in reflection, because I think that we all come from areas where there's been conflict at some level about how to look at each other in faith, and to be able to sort of carry forward on those commonalities. You talked a little bit about that, but I'd love to hear more of you know, what gives you hope, and then what are ways that you can be able to build, you know, I'm working with somebody that, you know, he works with a dispersed group of software engineers, and he's got challenges because, you know, he's a Christian, and he's afraid about working with Muslims. And I'm wondering, you know, like if we could talk more about that, because that would be an interesting, like what your reflection is on like how we work well together. So you talked a little bit about the values in God's creation, and prayer and faith and all these sorts of things. But I think sometimes the images on TV can be inaccurate. They can be just the extreme as opposed to the vast majority.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, my exposure to the U.S. before I first came here was through, you know, Hollywood, like just all the movies that I watched. So I thought, you know, the entire U.S. was like that, and my parents thought, you know, if they send their kid off, like, you know, 7,000 miles away, he's gonna, you know, start drinking and smoking and, you know, getting all into these bad habits that you tend to see in movies. And while there might be some truth to that, that's not the reality, that's not the majority. And I can see why, you know, when stereotypes are portrayed on the media or in the news, they can feel real. But you know, it's spaces like these when you get to meet each other and talk, and you realize, oh, we're the same people, we're doing the same things, we, you know, living very similar lives. And I think it's more about just being open-minded and open to other ideas and faiths, and yeah, I don't know if I have much more to say to that than just being open-minded, and there could be some conflict or difficulty in, you know, when I'm meeting someone new, when I came to Sioux Falls, like wondering if asking a certain question would maybe offend them because, you know, it's inappropriate or might be perceived as ignorant. But I don't really agree with that, because I think any question is a good question when it's coming out of like genuine curiosity. So there shouldn't be any negligence or hesitation in, you know, asking questions, because that's how you learn. If you know you're not going to talk to people, you're not going to learn. Otherwise, it's the media or the books, or would be the only source to get to know other. And I think just being in the same room with people and getting lunch with them, or spending time at their house and things like that, also like open up a door into like our actual lives.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Henry, how about you?
I'd say I was and have been I was a very timid kid.
Sure.
So going into spaces, like kind of like Taha said, going into spaces and asking people questions and just opening myself up to experiences other than mine was initially hard. But I think what I found is one of the only things separating you between where you're at now and where, maybe not necessarily where you want to be, but where you need to be, is just like asking a question, opening yourself up to an opportunity. Like even coming here and doing this, coming to Gary, South Dakota again. I met you once,
I know.
and then I stayed in your house, and then you invited me. I could have been like, okay, that seems like very
Right.
like weird, like it's not safe. I don't know you. I don't know the space enough. But it was just like saying, okay, I think this is an opportunity to go into a space with people I don't know and talk about like being an international student in Nigeria. An experience that maybe, I don't know if you guys have had that experience, but opening myself up to be able to have those conversations with people, I think has been what I found has worked the best. I think a lot of people, as I said, grew up in a specific mindset, a specific track mindset, and they tend to maybe stay not necessarily out of their own like intention, like, oh, I don't want to know anyone else. You just grow up in the same town. You don't really meet anyone because everyone around you is like you. So I think part of opening up the conversation and having people know more about our world and the people that live there is just as individuals stepping into new communities and saying like, hey, introducing yourself, my name's this is my story, and being more confident about our voice. I think a lot of people shy away from, okay, this is my story, and this is my story is I'm an international student, I'm Nigerian, but you have your story too, and it's just as important. I think some people shy away from like, okay, because it's not nuanced in this way, mine isn't as important. I think you provide some value to any conversation you enter, because some part of your experience is unique to you, and no one else will know that unless you share it with the world, unless you put it out into the void. And I think not enough people are doing that, so large messaging media takes stereotypes and preaches the message. If you don't speak your message, someone else will do it for you. So I think that's what I found, is just opening up, but then also using your voice to tell your story.
So important.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
I
that cool.
like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just hope they all heard that.
Yeah. Repeat that back, I'm curious.
Well, if I can, sometimes we don't speak up because we don't think our voice is significant or that we have anything significant to share. Whereas we do, just because we're each created unique.
Yeah.
Is that about what you said?
That's
And then the last thing, if you don't speak up, someone else will for you and probably will do it badly.
Yeah.
Most likely. I like that. You listen to that? Yeah, it's good stuff.
Rice.
Rice.
Something to add, I really appreciate your feedback, Will. It's always helpful. I deal with a lot of negotiations for contract negotiations. And there's a saying of, if you're not at the table, you're on the table. And I suggest that with faith and with politics and with all these things, it's a contact sport. It's not something that you go sit on the internet and you go look at what somebody else reads. Because I'm going to tell you, they put all sorts of crazy things on the internet, and it doesn't mean it's true. And so it's going and it's having those conversations that oftentimes can be, like, it's uncomfortable in the moment. There could be this uncomfortability. I could think about, like, if I was coming here for the first time and I'd never been to SotaSoDak and I don't know what I'm doing, I'm like, man, I don't have a clue. I don't know anything about TIG welding. I don't know anything about this. But it's knowing that there's people there having that faith, that there's people there that share the same vision, that have the same mission of being able to create great community. And I do feel that a lot of times we get into this concept of Christianity being this boat, or capitalism being this boat. And it's like, hey, we're in the boat and everybody else is outside of the boat, and they don't matter. And I really want to challenge you that I don't think that's what it is. I think it's us being brothers and sisters together, working towards, like, having maybe different perspectives. But when we look at the value overlay of Islam and Christianity, there's so much overlap.
Yeah.
And there's so much commonality. And yes, there are things in the media that will say one thing, but it's not accurate from my experience. And that lived experience, I think it's easy to fall into the mindset of, well, the TV says this, or there's somebody that's repeating what was on the TV says this. But then when we look at our shared experience, it's like, man, it's kind of what's all. And just in my life, in general, some of my best friends live lives completely different from mine. That don't, like, it's not the same thing, but it's the challenge of the different perspectives that adds the value, and that adds that real significance. Because I think we grow so much stronger about being able to work together, being able to have those different ideas. And then sometimes it's funny, like, going back and looking at things, that we have the shared past experience with. And it's having that understanding that there's a greater journey that we're on.
Yeah.
I like Psalm 23 a lot. It talks about the Lord is my shepherd. And I believe in Islam there's similar prayers. Are there prayers that you use that are helpful?
Yeah, there are lots of stories, or like the Moses' story, or Noah's story, and Abraham's story. And actually, I just learned this recently that Jesus is mentioned in the Quran more times than Muhammad is in the Quran.
Really?
Because we love him and respect him, and again, there's slight differences on how, like, Islam says that he's not God, but the messenger of God. But I think but at the end of the day, I think like, we're just looking at his values and how good he was towards his neighbors and his friends and his disciples and all those things. But yeah, in terms of prayers, there are lots of prayers that will that teach the value of community and not taking advantage of each other, education, not only like academics, but also like, you know, important skills and trades. Yeah, and give them through charity, however you can, whether it's monetarily or your time or service. Yeah.
Is that called sukkah? Is that, I can't remember the charity. What's the?
Zakat.
Sukkah, that's what it is, yeah. I remember studying, I've taken a lot of classes on
Right.
religion, and I was like curious about it.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome. In Nigeria, was there conflict at times between different religions? Like, what would you see conflict-wise? Like, what would that be like?
So, the northern Nigeria is based on like federal form of government, so it's very similar to the United States. We have our country and then states, local governments, and all that. But the northern part of Nigeria is mostly Islam, and this goes back to a lot of historical stuff. But the southern part is Christian, because that's when the British came. They decided to take over the southern part of Nigeria, but left the northern part. And the northern part had some influence from other stuff that was going on in the northern part of Africa. So there's a split between Islam, north, and then southern Christianity. But then there's also African traditions, which are like traditional beliefs sprinkled out in between. So you have some variety in religious beliefs all across. But a lot of times you'll find tension between the north and the south on different bases, but some of them being like the north is a little less developed because there wasn't as much development put in as a result of colonization in the north as there was in the south. So there's some conflict on that. The north is considered more rural, the south more urban. So again, there's clashes because of that. And so again, it's comes down to belief like, oh, my belief is right, yours is wrong, and so I need to bring you guys into the fold, and the only way I can do that is by forcing my belief on you. And so it turns out to be a lot of just not asking enough questions and just trying to brute force your ideology on someone else. And so that's where a lot of the conflict happens. So that middle area where there's overlap is where a lot of the conflict does tend to happen. A lot of times on that religious basis. And I'm not sure if you guys would have heard, there are a lot of extremist religious groups. You might have Boko Haram, you might have heard of if you're familiar with, if not. They're a group that operates not just in Nigeria, but a lot of sub-Saharan Africa, which is kind of like that Sahara stretch that goes across from east to west of the African continent. So that's where a lot of sometimes the tension does come from. And even politically, our president usually changes. People will judge leaders based on who are they Christian, are they Muslim, what are their values, rather than what are the policies they want to pursue. In Nigeria as well, we're a very like tribal-based country, so we have around 350 different tribes within that area. That's when the borders were drawn up for Nigeria as a country, it like encompassed a lot of groups that weren't necessarily like didn't share the same ethnic or like historical like tribal relations. So you have a lot of groups that are like, my mom and dad are from different tribes. My mom's southern and my dad is more northern tribe. But it worked out for them. That's not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people will butt heads based on like different tribes or different religions. And so that comes into play again, like politically, but also if you're looking for a job, some people will base it on like, oh, what tribe are you from? And so that creates a lot of conflict for people because it's a lot of times, which is unfortunate, it boils down to what is your affiliation? Is it one that I can relate with, one that ties to me, or is that one that like historically my group, my people have been in? So othering happens a lot, which is unfortunate. And it gradually seems like the newer generation is tending to move away from that, but progress is slow. Just to give you a high level overview, there's a lot more nuances to it, but that's a very high level overview of what it looks like.
Growing up for either of you, I mean, like I know in Pakistan, like with the border with India, there's conflict sometimes. Like, were your lives directly impacted by military? Like, did you have like exposure to conflict on the streets? Was that stuff something that you grew up with, or was it something that was surrounding you?
Yeah, during the time I was growing up, I mostly remember like around 2005 or 8 till 2014. That was a rough time to, be a kid and growing up and you couldn't really go out on the street because when the war on terror started in Afghanistan, a lot of people, immigrants or refugees, but also some extremist groups moved into Pakistan because we shared the border, and the Pakistan's government was supporting the U.S. to eliminate Taliban and fight them, but that turned Taliban against Pakistan too. So there were lots of like suicide bombings and targeted killings all over the country. So it was not a good time to everyone was scared to go to school or to go to work or shopping centers and things we take for granted. But so there was a lot of conflict around that time. And yeah, there's always like conflict around the border with India too, because again, like when the British ruled Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, it used to be one country, and when they left, they just drew random borders, and was a haphazard exit, wasn't really planned or organized as well. So that led to some conflict, and the conflict mostly exists still, but I think it's more political than on a personal level. Like when I was growing up in Pakistan, I didn't meet any Indians because there was less travel or trade between the two countries. But I've had great friends at Augustana that are from India, and other parts of the world. And when you talk to them, you realize that the same propaganda media that I was consuming against the enemy country is similar in that country too. But when you actually get to meet people, you realize that that's not what the people want. The people want trade and love and just being able to go across borders and meet everyone and live a peaceful life, because nobody wants to lose their business or health or their kids. I don't think anyone supports conflict here, but I think this is mostly just political, because for distraction purposes, or to get more power, or to spend more on this military budget that you want, which is I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like any wars. I think peace is the only right solution. But I know it's hard to achieve because of these conflict of interest and getting into power and staying into power and strengthening your power, whether it's in a democratic way or just through getting more dictatorish, that just collect power and keep enforcing those rules to stay in power longer. Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, something I always think about is we take for granted peace. Like we take for granted that there's people not with guns. I mean, people might go hunting, but it's not, it's not that. And I remember when I moved to South Dakota, I went road hunting, and we're hunting pheasant. And it took me about 2 hours because we're out in central South Dakota, and we're driving along, and it's like I'm getting out of the car with a gun, and I just don't have, I've trained with firearms before, but I don't have that part, and that not growing up with conflict isn't something to take for granted. We really want to be grateful for that. We really want to protect that, because it's something where being able to have good friendships, good relationships with everybody is really my goal. And it doesn't always happen. I'm not, but there's times where I think sometimes just walking away, sometimes being able to get distance away from those conflicts can be so beneficial, because that stress of growing up with it, of having that, I have to imagine there were planes flying over all the time. There was lots of difficult things growing up in that environment, because it's the city you grew up in is literally right on the coast. So India is here, Afghanistan's here,
Right.
and so there's so much going on in that region, and so and there's a lot of wealth. I think there's just so much that goes on, and I think same with Nigeria. There's tremendous wealth in that region.
Yeah.
It's oil producing, and then
So a lot of the oil is produced in the southeastern part of the country, which one tribe predominantly lives in that area. So when there was a civil war in Nigeria in mid-1800s, and one of the things that happened was the people in the southeastern part were discriminated against, and they wanted to split off and secede. And so the some of the leaders in the country didn't want that because that was a resource-rich area. So what they did was they went to war with one another, but a lot of those people from that community were prejudiced and were targeted specifically on the streets. And those people from that tribe who lived in northern areas as well would be again targeted, put in jail, thrown in jail, or just suspected for treason. And my grandpa wasn't a member of that tribe, but had physical features that were similar to people from that tribe. So he was also targeted. He was a member of the military, but it made it complicated to do his work. So my grandma, and when my mom was just born, they had I think I remember him telling me this story. There was a jet flying over and it was shooting, but one of the cartridges from a bullet that was shot fell on their house right when my grandma was cooking. Left a divot in the roof. So that kind of conflict is not as pervasive today. It's not as common today, but it still does happen. Where I lived before I came here was Jos, which is like smack in the center of the country, which I mentioned. North and south is the like kind of division. So the area I lived in was kind of the battleground area. So when a lot of conflicts did happen, it tended to happen that way. It wasn't like a full-out blown war zone, but when people did crash heads, it tended to be in that area. So there were a lot of times where we would have like I forget the term, but like a shutdown essentially, where people would be told to stay at home, streets aren't safe, just kind of like COVID, but think about it for like, it could happen at any time where it's like, oh, there's this group is coming through, it's not safe for people to be around, they're burning homes, they're targeting people, so that sort of thing. But again, I knew my neighbors were Muslim, so it's not like I hated anyone from the other side. I had relationships with people who were from different groups, different communities, so I don't think the majority of people harbor hate necessarily against the other. It's more so you have extremes on either end. That's where it tends to, that's put a lot in the media, so people think that's the norm, that's what's going on.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I really like this conversation. I'm very grateful for everybody being here and for us to have this opportunity, because it's a blessing. I mean, it really, we think about the expertise that you both bring and the ability to be able to connect with both the leadership aspect as well as the technological capability that makes our farm stronger, that makes our community stronger, that helps us to be able to build more organizations. It's awesome. Really, I'm grateful. Do you all have more final thoughts? Are there things that we haven't discussed that you want to make sure to cover?
No, I think this is great. Like I mentioned, like there's not a lot of places that, at least I've been, that have open, honest discussion and questions like here. So I'm grateful for you to organize it, and then for everyone to show up. And it's nice to meet you all. And hopefully we'll stay connected after this too, whatever way it is.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. The only thing I would push is the importance of like open and honest conversation. I don't think realistically a lot of people won't be offended if you have a question to ask that's open and honest. Come from a place of, hey, I don't know this, but I want to know more, I want to learn from you. And I think that's how you open up more conversations, how you make a world that's more understanding, more empathetic. So as much as possible, in whatever communities you go to, I think this format is great, it's perfect, and it's good work you're doing, Gary. But I think this is just what I think the world needs, especially now, and more going forward. I think a world with artificial intelligence scares me because you can have a lot more misinformation pushed out at a faster rate and more effective way, where people can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not. So I think having more in-person conversations with people, not behind a screen, is so much more important. So I will continue to be a proponent of that. And then if anyone has any questions or anything, I'm open.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for being here. I'm curious, what questions do we have?
I have a lot, but I'll
Up to
wait
you.
until what the kids tell us.
Mr. Ethan, I know it's your first time here, but do you have any ideas?
So, my question for both of you what has been the biggest difference between of when you were at home and then when you're here, and what was the biggest similarity that when you guys came here?
The first one that jumps out is the cold.
Right.
It's way too cold. When I was first coming out, my mom had gotten like a big coat. She was like, "You need this. You should wear this." And I was like, "No, I'll be fine. I'll be fine." I instantly
Yeah.
that was
Did
the
you
one.
bring the coat?
I put it in like my check-in, so I didn't have it when I needed it.
Yeah.
It was locked in everything. I got it eventually, but
Yeah.
I should have listened.
So what's the climate like in Nigeria?
It's a
Both
lot.
in terms of like the biome as
Yeah.
well as the temperature.
Yeah. So Nigeria is little. You have a little more variety. We have a coast. So if you think of Africa, we're kind of like sort of in the armpit area, like right in that corner, Gulf area,
So east,
or west.
or yeah, west. Sorry,
Yeah.
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 Yep.
So that region that coastal region gets a lot more tropical
Okay.
weather climate. The further north you go, we're right below this, or right below the Sahara. So that area is more arid, more desert, and then it kind of moves into a savanna style. So it's kind of like
Okay.
you get a whole spectrum
Okay.
throughout the whole country. So you can get as diverse experience as you want, depending on where you live. Yeah. So that's to your question. And then the other thing about most similar. I'll come back. I'll let Taha go first. I'll think about it.
Yeah, in terms of the most different thing, other than the climate, because Pakistan is like almost like a vertical strip of land. So on the top, there's more mountains and glaciers. So it's very cold and snows all the time. But the city I'm from is on the southern end, and it's very hot and humid and moist all year round. The coldest it gets is like maybe 50 degrees, and that's about 2 months of the year. But other than that, I think the culture of independence in the U.S. was something that was different for me, because back home, you live in the same house, over generations. When you turn 18, you're not expected to, move out of the house and get your own space. It's rather expected that, you would live with your parents and, start your family in that same house, and that's the case with my family. The house that my parents live in was what my grandpa built, like after the partition happened when the British left. That was in 1950s. So all his elder brothers lived there, and he lives there now, and our grandparents lived there when they were alive. And my brother, one of them, now lives there. So I think that was the biggest difference. And there's both like pros and cons of either way of living. Because back home you get a lot of things provided for you. Like I was mentioning to Gary yesterday that in a middle class family, it's common to have maids and servants around the home. So your laundry's done for you, your dishes are done for you, and you're driven around town whenever you need to go. Which sounds nice, right? But that doesn't give you the development that I think is very important. Like I would not have learned to weld or do any of these things because there's always someone with those skills already. So just learning all those things and becoming independent, figuring out how to get my credit card, or how to open a bank account, and all those sorts of things that we don't really think about. I think that was immense learning experiences for me, and that's why I'm a big proponent of studying abroad or staying away from family if you can. But also recognize the importance of being around family and friends, because that's a community that's very close to us. In terms of similarity, I would say like the goals of the people are pretty similar. Like everyone back home wants a better life for themselves than their parents had, and they want to provide that for their kids too, which is the same case here. And a lot of like values that you want to live in a good community that's peaceful and lives with harmony and cares about one another. Similar values here too. So I think on an individual level, the community-based values are quite similar. That was a good question.
Yeah, just like what you said, that stuff was done for you, and yes, it honestly did sound amazing. Like, oh wow, I seriously don't have to do my laundry. That's great. But then it also puts in a factor once, like of course that's happening, but when you come here, there's not that thing that you have to figure out, which it is a good learning step. Like for me, at first I hated meeting new people, but now I love meeting new people. I think when it dramatically changed is when I met Gary for the first time, because the first time I met him, I was so intimidated by him. I was so scared by him because he's tall and he was. Yeah, it was just like, and then I remember our first conversation like it was yesterday, that I asked him if we could go to Dollar General so that I could buy myself some energy drinks, and then that, like just saying, if I've never met him, I probably wouldn't even be here, which I seriously love that fact, and it is almost amazing that and then that was also going to a place by myself. That was the first time. It was seriously in Kentucky. It was by myself with just that, with the church group. And then honestly, I was really terrified because everywhere we went, there were parents there. And so me going by myself, it was a learning step, but it was terrifying. And then that long drive, it was terrible. Terrible. But it was just honestly just great for me that our first conversation was about me getting a pack of energy drinks. But then that kind of formed into a friendship to where I'm here now, which I love.
I bet his answer was maybe.
He thought my answer would have been maybe.
Okay.
I have to say, John, I think that trip changed my life too in so many ways. And that's what the opportunity is it's the journey that all of us are on, and actively pursuing fellowship. Because if we actively pursue fellowship, we change those we come in contact to. In Matthew, it talks about, you put the light on the hill. You shine the light on the hill, you don't put a cloak over it. Each of us have this just amazing God-given spirit that's a miracle. I mean, it can feel like it's not there when we're lost. I mean, I remember for many years, with addiction, internet, and video games, I didn't have, the happiness I have right now is a miracle. That's why I enjoy it so much, because I didn't have it. And so thinking about the cultivation that we're making, we take these brave steps. Sometimes they're very bold steps. Sometimes we create these goals that are so intimidating, but that's how we truly change the world. And John, you changed my life just as much.
Thank you.
It's fun because you have being a part of your development process is an honor for all of us. I mean, it's fun to just be in community and to have this space and to be able to see and to share our lives. And, it's really quite a magical thing, what we can do together. Yeah. And that's where really, I think the opportunity is, especially cross faith, because it's those commonalities and that commitment to service and that commitment to really that sense of righteousness and the ways in which, I was in a meeting not long ago where someone was talking about jihad, and I understand that the media present is one way, but I talk about righteousness, and righteousness is about the sin within my heart, and I think we have commonality there, and so it's being able to go and define, that we have more similar with everybody than we do differences, and we all grow.
I think it's not short of a miracle that all of us are here. Just our parents met and their parents met, and through all these things, I could have been, if you believe in multiverses and all those things, maybe I could have been in somewhere else and didn't even know any of this existed. so it's very slight chance that, in a floating ball of land and water in the middle of the universe, there's us. And I think that's beautiful and amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're here for a reason and shouldn't take it for granted. And I tried my best not to.
Absolutely. Thank you. What questions did you have? Because I know you have questions. You guys have wisdom.
Well, now I have one for John. You don't still drink energy drinks.
Yes.
John, you gotta have a
Once
conversation.
in a while.
You've had conversations about those with him.
I am getting better,
It's
but
okay, you don't have to explain yourself. I just
but okay.
think they're bad.
like I'm way better. Like back then, I was drinking like 2 to 3 energy drinks a day,
Okay.
to where now I basically have one every couple weeks.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
All right, good work.
Yeah, you need the caffeine as much now.
That needs to happen to Reagan.
Because I mean, if this thing didn't happen to me, I would probably still be drinking 2-3 energy drinks a day. Okay, but like, there are like certain energy drinks. One that has carbonation and one doesn't. I bought 3 of those, completely oblivious that each one had 200 milligrams of caffeine to them. I chugged all of them. First period.
Oh, no.
By 6th period, which was math class with Lalam,
Oh no.
I was shaking so bad, and I could just not sit down in one single place. That I was just like, okay, I should be done for a while.
Yeah, okay, so you recognize it.
Yes.
You're doing some
Yeah.
things,
Yes.
Okay. All right, moving on. Okay. So you both speak English so very well. You learned that growing up? It's the second language, or?
Yeah. So I went to a private school, or the national language of Pakistan is Urdu, which is similar to Arabic, but also similar to Hindi and to Persian and to Turkish. And there's a lot of influence from all over the region.
Okay.
But I was fortunate enough to go to a private school where English was the primary teaching or method of instruction. And so I learned English from the beginning, since like kindergarten,
Okay,
as a second language.
okay. And I'm gonna have you spell your first language.
It's Urdu, U-R-D-U.
Oh, U-R-D-U.
Yeah.
Urdu.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, I have not heard of that.
For Nigeria, English is the official language. We have 3 major tribal languages, so Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo, which are divided up by 3 major areas. But English is the official language that most people speak, and then you usually learn the language of your mom, your dad primarily, and then your mom if you have the bandwidth for that, and then whatever region you lived in. So my mom and dad are separate tribes and speak different languages, and then the area I lived in spoke Hausa, but I learned English primarily through education at home.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. And maybe I can't form my question about that. How old are each of you?
I'm 26.
26?
I look 35.
I didn't say that.
At 23.
23.
Yeah.
So he's Strand's age. That's
Strand's old.
How
Strand looks so old.
It's funny because I always thought I was the youngest, and now people are telling me I'm old. So I'm like, okay, I
No. 26
When you
and
first
26.
came in here, I was like, is he 20 years old? He looks like he's 20. I'm like, no.
I'll take that.
Yeah, that's right, take that. And so you've been here about 4 years, a little more,
Yeah.
and you've been here,
About 7. So I started at Augie in 2018.
okay,
Yeah, about 7
Okay.
years almost. Yeah.
okay. And are you hoping to stay here and have family here, and this is where you want to raise your family, or are you gonna go back, or you don't know yet?
For me at least, I'm thinking in 1 to 2 year increments.
Yeah,
Leaving the door open to whatever happens and whatever opportunities come. But it would be nice to have some stability. I think I like this place enough that if blessings and opportunities allow, I would like to be here.
Yep.
But also granted that there are other powers that be that things might change. I might not have that choice.
Sure.
So yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I shift between wanting to, be here or going back home, and that's mostly because of my parents. I mean, they're fairly young still, I think 55 and 50 and healthy, but I know that's not going to last forever, and I think this is my age to, be with them and, spend time with them, because they gave so much of their energy and money and efforts to, raise me and my two brothers and send me here and pay for college and all those things. So there's a part of me that wants to go back and, serve them, be with them, be with my friends and extended family and so on. But I know that's what my parents would want for me to be, is, be independent, continue what I'm doing, and because all the opportunities I have here would be much harder to get back home. So there's a tight balance between
Sure.
what you want to do. But
Yeah.
like Henry said, I think still thinking in short-term increments.
Yeah.
I think for the next couple of years I'll be here. Maybe I'll do a master's, and we'll just see where things keep opening up and where it ends up being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're both very young, so you have lots of time to. That's awesome. And how did you choose? Why America? Why did you want to come here as opposed to a different country?
For me, I have some family in the U.S. So my aunt lives in Chicago, my uncle is in New York and the Virginia area. So it's more familiar to me because family is here.
Okay.
But also school application wise, the US's applications open up the first. So I applied here and got in and things worked out. But I had looked at going to the UK or maybe even Australia or even Germany, but those applications are later. So
Okay.
if this would not have worked out, I think I would have gone the other route for sure.
Okay. Okay.
It's kind of similar to Taha. I had family that was here, so it was familiar. But I also applied to different institutions, different places. Augustana was just one of the options, and then at the end of the day, when I boiled everything down, financially made a lot of sense. I knew I had some family in some areas, fairly still 8-hour flight away, but still fairly close. And then I think one thing that was really important to me, speaking to differences between Nigeria and here, is in Nigeria, around middle school, you kind of pick which track you're going. So it's either art or science. And so you're kind of locked into that for the next high school and then graduation. There's not a lot of flexibility. Whereas here you have a whole liberal arts education. You have some time to while you're taking your major classes, you can still take your gen eds and play around and figure out what you want to do. Which is someone who came in with government, and then I think I changed my major around 3 times. I think that was something I needed, that was beneficial, but then also learning, even having an opportunity like this to learn welding and other skills, I think it's helped me develop more as a person, and that was something that is very important to me because I want to have that wide breadth of understanding, knowledge, and experience.
Yeah.
So that's what ultimately made me choose this place over Nigeria.
Okay.
And I think in Pakistan, the United States is still looked at as, the leader country, the example of free speech and democracy and opportunities and innovation. So what we talk about, the American dream, it's well known in Pakistan too that, this is the place if you want to, be someone or do something. And I realize that no place is perfect and, things change with different environments and politics and all those sorts of things, but I think that was also one of the biggest reasons because if you want to do something for yourself, the United States is the place to be.
Okay.
And that's how I understand a lot of people that moved here back in the day were also moving here because this the early 80s or 50s and 90s because and that perception is still true, and it again shifts up and down with different things, but that's still the case.
Yeah. And it sounds like since you've come, you feel that it is that way.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
proven itself to be that
Right,
way, that you
right.
can be who you want to be.
Yeah.
yeah. It's
And
not.
it's so good to learn different things, isn't it? It's so
Yeah.
fun to
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do TIG welding too, by the way.
I've got time.
I really would love to learn all kinds of things. You know, life is, you gotta do.
It's fun, it's
some
fun.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So I think that maybe that goes back to, this helps circle around to the language question. Have you come across in your own circles or your area of the world where there is resentment towards the United States? Does anyone resent that you have English as a, primary language, you know what I mean?
Like within the U.S. or from back?
From your home
Oh, yeah.
country.
I think that's honestly looked as a good thing that you know English. While I don't like it, but it is the case mostly that if you speak English, you're considered more educated and more westernized, and some people look at it as a good thing, but others, there are some pockets that think that because of the war on terror specifically, there's a negative image of the U.S. as well.
Yeah.
Because that brought instability to that region in general. While it was for a good cause, and the government supported the U.S.'s mission, but just the side effects of those things also led into some of the. But I think that's mostly resolved now since it's more stable, and the war has been officially over for some time now, or a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But I think the lasting effects would probably take a few years to fully dissolve.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of like outright resentment per se. It's more so like maybe jealousy at the opportunity that it lends. Like
Okay.
some people might not have access to that same opportunity, so when they see someone having like that opportunity to go study abroad, to speak English, to have that access, then it's more so like, why don't I have that? So that's where the internal resentment might come from. So sometimes I don't think it will ever keep you from like getting a job access or anything like that, but it's more so like I guess how people treat you in like a face-to-face interaction with one person to another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason I asked is because my sister lived in different countries, and she was at a medical facility, and the doctor there, I don't remember what they were talking about, but made a comment to my sister and said, why does America think they have to, let's see, how did she say it? Why does the United States want everybody to be like them? And she was angry. And my sister didn't know how to respond, and I wouldn't have known how to respond because I didn't know that's how they felt. I thought we have presence around the world to help create freedom, the freedoms that we have. That's how I viewed that. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I was very surprised by that, and kind of anger. So that's why I asked that question.
Yeah, that's tough because, especially in Afghanistan, I know that people are, very patriotic and, don't want any outsiders. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, they did not like that, and even though, I think most of the majority of the Afghani people that I have met don't like the Taliban, but they supported them because they were fighting the invaders or the outsiders. And that's similar to the U.S. as well. When the U.S. invaded Afghanistan, everyone just turned against the outside force. So which again maybe is their patriotism, or maybe I don't know what the actual reason is, but I could see why that would be. Why they would think that the U.S. is trying to enforce their idea of freedom or their idea of living life onto them for whatever reason it is.
Yeah.
So I could see why that is, but also realize that if internal powers or governments don't support change, someone has to. So I think there's a balance between how you do it, whether it's through military action or through education or soft power that we talk about. And I don't know what the right answer is. That's just my observation.
Yeah.
I think in that situation, even it sounds like the one person was making a statement, like a broad generalization. Like
Yeah.
at that level, when it's just two individuals, I think at that point the response might be like, "Why do you feel that way?" Like,
Yeah.
it sounds like the person was maybe personalizing a lot, like something that happened to them individually or to like their circle, and so they were using that as an experience to like make that statement. I think
Yeah.
that's an opportunity to open like wait for discourse and like
Yeah.
what happened, like understand better the other person on the other side, like what's happened.
Yeah.
Because again, large powers have their interactions, and that it doesn't necessarily always trickle down to the individuals in the same way. They kind of just absorb it without like they don't understand the context. For them, it's like a very personal thing. But the larger powers aren't necessarily thinking about the little people and like what it means for them. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And in that moment, because she was visiting the doctor, and the doctor's the one who made that comment to her, there wasn't time to follow up on that
Right.
conversation,
Yeah.
so they probably both left feeling like, oh,
Yeah.
and then that's how we perceive that the whole thing, you know? Because we were on our trip, it used to be, I'm old enough to have traveled a little, and you used to talk to people. This person in the seat beside you used to have conversations, not anymore.
So different.
And it's very sad because, yes, sometimes you want a nap, you know, I understand that, but I had a chance to talk to a young lady from India. She also came,
Oh, yeah.
remember?
I don't know what her name
Oh, I wanted to write it down.
is.
Ishwari.
Yeah,
Am I pretty close?
I think
Yeah,
that sounds
you
about
know.
right.
But it was a really great conversation. She also came to study. She's getting a master's degree. Her family's very excited for her, very proud of her. And so to you young people, what? Take the opportunity to talk to people. John, I think you're getting really good at that, don't you think?
Yeah, just like, I mean, for years and years, I've never had a phone. So then I kind of built up that tolerance as like, oh, I can talk to someone. And that's why it's so easy for me for Pine Haven, that to not have our phone for a week, that I can just engage in a conversation like this. But like, I'm saying if I got a phone way earlier, I probably wouldn't be engaging in conversations of like how I do now.
Yeah, oh, I'm glad that you recognize that.
So that's a great segue, because my question for both of you was, if you could talk about fellowship in your culture, because like you mentioned, you know, we are very independent here in the United States. I would say almost to a fault,
Yeah,
in the sense that we're all kind of lonely islands in a lot of ways, especially now with the phones and whatnot. And so if you could kind of talk about how, I guess what you guys grew up in, what fellowship was like, and maybe if you guys have ideas that you could share of how we could be more communal here in the United States.
I think I've got this question a lot, and one of the biggest things I always go back to is a lot of our communities are built around food. So like holidays, so Christmas, what we would do is we lived in like a little, it wasn't a gated community, it was just houses next to each other. But we would cook food, and we always, each neighbor would take food to each neighbor's houses, so we always shared our food. And this was
just neighbors, this wasn't even friends, this was neighbors.
Just neighbors,
Awesome.
yeah, just because we lived in the same area. So we built up that relationship over years. And some of our neighbors were Muslim as well, so when they would celebrate Ramadan, they would do the same thing. So we didn't necessarily celebrate it, but when they were celebrating, we got to be a part of the celebration. They would come over, talk for a couple of hours about like what they're doing, catch up on life, and then yeah, everybody would go back. But it was a way to build camaraderie over years, because I think sometimes I've seen like people live next to one another and complete strangers, they don't know one another. But that was not something it was uncommon to be able to do that, because like if you left your house, you can be like, you can leave it to your neighbors and be like, hey, I'm going away for the weekend, can you watch it, or just make sure my dog is taken care of and all that kind of stuff. We do that pretty frequently at school too. We have different, like I said, tribes, so we also have people who are from different countries, and so we'd have like a day, we call it multicultural day. We'd have a day where everyone would bring their food, talk about their country, what the food meant to them and their family, what that dynamic was. And so food is a really big one for me. When I came here to college too, that was one I kind of brought, and I was surprised that more people didn't do it. But we just have like potlucks and like have people bring their food on like a monthly basis. Also, we didn't want to eat dining hall food. But it was just a good way to get to know a lot of people during my freshman year. And a lot of those people I have strong relationships with now. My roommate was from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I made him food my first couple of months there. It was too spicy. I hadn't learned the moderation yet. Yeah. He suffered through it, and I appreciate him for that in Scotland. But yeah, I think that's one of the ways that I've seen like being able to build fellowship and just talk about the differences and appreciate things like spicy food and not spicy food. I learned a lot about South Dakota and Midwest staples, like eating potatoes.
Hot dish.
And I can appreciate it now because of those early, like, just roundtable discussions I had with people. So I think that's one I'd love to see more. We also just like go up to people's houses unannounced, no texts, just be like, hey, I'm around in the neighborhood. Can I sit with you for dinner or just like hang out? No need for food, but just have a conversation.
Yeah, similar. Like when my parents tell me that when my dad was growing up, it was not that. It was more so that like the neighbors were raising everyone's kids together, like because the kids would be just playing outside, and for lunch they would just go to this house, like 12 kids show up, and we feed them all as if they're your own kids, and then you do the same for everyone else. So I think that's a good point, that food is a great way to build those connections. But when I was growing up, that was much different, because it did start to get more individualistic. But I mean, we still play on the streets with our neighbors, like kids and with a similar age and all that, but it's slightly more different, again, with the invention of the smartphone, and as society changes. But I think at the end of the day, it's realizing that if you're in the same area or same community, same neighborhood, it's like an extended family, because you have stakes in that place, and you have people that and you go to the same school, and it really helps to just know one another, whether it's for help to look after your house while you're gone, or collect your packages, or just in case you need help, or just to make sure that the entire neighborhood or community is safe. And so yeah, it probably doesn't answer your question directly, but
Oh, that's good.
yeah.
My follow-up question about growing up with multiple generations under one roof. Would you mind talking more about that? Because that's another thing that I think here in the States we do really poorly. We just throw our elderly away. Once your parents get to a certain age, you put them in a home, and it's,
Separate.
yeah, it's separate. Where I think, taking care of your family or bringing them back into your home or whatever, I think is a really great thing. Not only did you're taking care of them, but they can then take care of the little ones, and you get multiple generations of wisdom. So can you speak more to what it's like having multiple generations under one room, or under one roof? And
Yeah, the house I grew up in is like a 2-story house that, again, my grandfather built when he moved in the 1950s. And let's see, I think he has like 4 sons and 2 daughters that lived in that house. And my dad is the youngest one. So as the kids got married and started to have their family, the house wasn't big enough, so they did move out of the house into but very close by. So it's like within a 5-mile radius. Everyone's living nearby. Kind of like some families in the farm do. Like you have one brother living here and one brother living next door. And I think that has great importance, because you get to know your cousins and hang out with them, and have those relationships and learn how to deal with conflict because you're fighting with your cousins over things. And
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important, especially in the development years, to learn how to resolve conflict and how to fight effectively, because those things are going to happen, but you just need to learn how to navigate through those.
Well, and forgiveness.
And forgiveness,
Even if you
yeah.
can't resolve it, to
Right.
look, this
Yeah.
ain't that important.
Right.
I still love you.
Yeah. And now, like, the house is just my mom and dad and one of my brothers because all the other kids moved out. And my grandparents, lived in the same house until they passed away. Like, nursing homes is not a thing, like, your society will look down on you if you left your parents like that. But I realized that, like, in the US, when everyone's, like, working and culturally it's different because back home, like, my mom was a housewife, so she was taking care of my dad's parents while he was gone working. But when everyone in the house is working for meet your bills, and because it's just a different way of life, I can see why when you're not able to take care of your parents, you think a nursing home might be better for them as long as you keep visiting them. But it could also be alienating because they gave up so much in their young years to stay back for you and provide you the life and spend time with you and take care of you, and it's just your time to give back. Yeah.
And mine was somewhat similar. So my grandparents are all gone now, but before they passed on, they were still relatively able to live on their own, but it was kind of switched. So while they had 8 kids of their own on my mom's side, and while they were growing up, they also brought other kids into the fold, so kids who had lost their parents, and then other kids in the community, like cousins and all, so they lived in the same house, and it was a fairly big house. So when my parents, or like their kids had moved out, my mom had moved out, some of those kids who were still younger stayed in the house, and they were able to like live with them, and so they still had there was always someone in the house, whether it was like some of my other aunts who like were going through something and would have to move into the house, but there was always like a rotating group of people who would be in that house and in that community. And so, that's the way it was in like my house, and they kind of built their houses, like Taha said, with the intention that it would be like passed down to generations. So I remember like my grandpa's and grandma's house had 7 rooms in it, which is like a lot. You think that's a lot for one person, but it's because they always had so many people in it. And when I was growing up, we had a cousin's daughter who lived in a more rural area, but she wanted to like go to school in a more urban area. So what happened was she came and lived with us instead, and so we all grew up under the same house. And she would help us around, like do different things in the house. So rather than like outsourcing like nannying or stuff like that, which I noticed is a lot more common here. There's things like you outsource everything through an app that you need. And back home, you'd kind of find family, like that would be, we find a way to incorporate that with people who like needed something like an experience, or like they wanted to go to school in a more urban area, and then have that like folded into the dynamic that was already there. It's awesome. Yeah.
And the fact that the houses are made of concrete makes it easier to pass it on to generations.
I mean, like we would almost, from my understanding of like construction in Pakistan, it's like almost like an apartment building. Like, I mean, we would think about it as an apartment building, but it's typically, is it a courtyard? And I'm curious, the construction.
It's the same thing.
The same thing, where you have multi-generational, multiple levels. You have the structure where I feel like here with the farming community, like I feel like your home is very similar in that it's like you're kind of an island. It's that you have this independence, and that's an area, just like that home construction and the concept of home. Being able to speak about that a little bit would be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know much about the construction side of things, but they're mostly, I shouldn't say mostly, but my house at least was, had 2 levels with the staircase connecting from the outside, which made it easier to, even rent it out to a different family if needed. And my family did that for some time. But it also had a lawn area, like in front yard almost, or connected to the driveway where, you would play cricket or soccer or just hang out, and because it rained so rarely in my city, you would just go out and in the rain, play in the rain when that happened, or have your friends from the neighborhood over. Yeah.
Housing is so different because, like Taha said, when you graduate, you're not necessarily your family doesn't necessarily push you out. You can stay in as long as you want, and it's like when you move into a house. Like most people, we don't take mortgages on houses. Most people don't. Like you buy it outright, and most people don't even buy houses necessarily. They have land, so they started from like scratch. You'll buy land, and then you build the house on it. So you're going through the whole process, everything. You're seeing just the bare bones. You're envisioning what you want that to look like. You're working with the architect on your construction team to build that process out into a home. And the idea is again that you're going to pass that on to your kids. Most people don't sell their houses necessarily. And it's like when you're setting up there for life. So most people are only moving into houses when they're like starting a family. Up until then, for the most part, they're either living with their family or they move into a house with like friends. So apartment life, I mean, it's becoming more common now. But growing up, that was something that I guess it seemed like it was a shock for me when I first came here because that was something I had to get used to.
Big bird. Yeah, it's awesome. Anybody have final questions? Oh, Tarek had one. You raised your hand earlier. I'm sorry.
So back to the language. I've been to a couple different places outside of the U.S., like Switzerland and France. One thing I have noticed is that the English language is kind of universal now. It's a lot of people speak it because it's one of the main things that I don't know, it's just people speak it. So go ahead.
So as someone who's graduating high school in a year, it's just that what is the difference between like a minor and a major, and then a master's, I believe it is, and that it's master's, major, minor.
So undergraduate is what you. So the difference would be undergraduate and master's. So master's or undergraduate is what you would do immediately after high school. Master's would be the next level after that. So your undergraduate would typically be anywhere from like 4 years. Or you can alternatively do like an associate's degree, which is 2 years. So that would be associates, undergraduate, and then master's. Associates 2 years, undergraduate is 4 years. If you went in straight into an undergraduate, you wouldn't need to do the associates. And then master's would be after you graduate from your undergraduate degree. And then the difference between a major and a minor. So if you think about it, like I want to specialize in one thing. So for example, computer science, that would be your main focus. But if you're like, I also want to learn this other thing that I'm somewhat interested in, but I don't want it to be my main focus, that's what your minor would be. Also like mathematics, you can do it in the same track, or you can do something completely different. Like I knew someone who did computer science and then art because they really like the art, but they don't. You want to, so you can see it two ways. You can double down on what you really like doing, or you can feed another part of your soul that's maybe like artistic or
because I mean right now, because since I'm going to my junior year, I'm usually looking for colleges and that, and I think a minor would be good for me because I really love theater. I usually love acting and that. I love do it, but I have like another thing that I want to do. So then I think that might work really well for me. So. And just a question for fun. Did you guys do any sports when you guys came?
Not as like part of the like university teams, but I played a lot of soccer. At Augustana. They don't have a men's soccer team, but they have a men's soccer club, which we played against like other schools, but we didn't get any money for it.
I don't like running, so I didn't play. But I did play cricket just for fun with some friends back home mostly. But At Augie there wasn't much of a cricket group, but I just recently found out there is one in Sioux Falls, so I try to go play every Sunday when the weather's nice out. Yeah.
All 1 month of the.
Otherwise it's too hot or too cold.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
much. Other questions?
No, not that I know of.
Let's give our speakers a round of applause. It's just so awesome. I'm grateful for your time, making the trip and having these conversations. I think the future that we create together, working together, is so important, and this is what we're doing here. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
We'll get lunch out in just a second. We'll go from there. So,
Awesome,
thank
thanks.
you all
I gotta
very much.
go get food for my